Hi, James. Great to see you today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
No problem. So, the first thing I'd like to ask you is really, how did it all start for Rainbird?
So, yeah, good question. My co-founder in Rainbird, Ben Taylor, and I had spent 6 years together in a previous business. And so when that business was sold on to private equity, management bought it, and I left. It wasn't long before Ben approached me and asked me whether or not I was willing to take some of the money that we just made in that business and invest in his startup. So actually, for me, I was the first angel to invest in Rainbird, and then was very quickly asked to sort of jump in. But I have to say, it took me about 20 minutes to make the decision to invest. And actually, that was sufficient to get a workable prototype of the technology and establish good levels of interest before we then went to go and look for other investors that might share our vision.
Yeah, okay, that's fascinating. So at what point in the journey did you decide you were ready to pitch to angels? I know you were kind of the first one, but then at what point did you all agree that you would go out to find new angels?
So we knew that we were early with what we were doing. So the first year was really funding the development of an MVP, minimum viable product, something that we could just sort of get out and expose to people and get some initial feedback. And off the strength of that, and winning a little bit of business and sort of enterprise support for what we were doing, we decided it was about a year, 18 months in, that we would go and do a seed round. And that's when ACG first got involved. We raised £330,000. It was a pretty straightforward decision. Rainbird's the fifth business I've co-founded. So I think for Ben and what was beginning then to be a team, they had a little bit of a jump start, I suppose, because they had my experience to pull on. I was actually a non-executive chairman at the time, so I jumped in and shaped the vision, but I was by no means full-time within the business. But we had a clear proposition, despite it being an emerging and quite complex space. I've been pitching for sort of 20 years, and the ACG group seemed a smart and friendly lot. So that was our first raise, and then actually the business went through the Techstars accelerator. It applied to Y Combinator in the US and Techstars in London, and was successful in getting into Techstars. And so it kind of was, in a way, the first investment round sort of bookended that Techstars experience. And for those that don't know, Techstars is a 13-week boot camp for startups, where we were one of 10 selected from 1,500 globally for that program. So very competitive. And we raised about 330,000 going in, and then the best part of $1 million pretty quickly after we left.
Amazing. That sounds great. So you obviously had a lot of experience in pitching. So what was it like to pitch to the ACG angels?
So, they're not an intimidating lot. And because we were very well prepared and had a very clear understanding of the space we were in, it was a very straightforward process. The worst possible scenario for me in pitching is where you just have sort of faces looking back at you and no real depth of questioning. But we had good questioning and enthusiasm to understand the space. It was a positive experience.
Great, that's really good to hear. So thinking about your experience, have you got any advice that you could give to the current crop of startups who are currently gearing up for their first pitch?
Yeah, so I think, my advice to anybody starting up is to, just be as prepared as you can in really understanding your space. It's very easy to sort of chase your own hypothesis as a startup founder. You do have to sort of get out the building and expose what you're doing to a wide range of people early. I think even when you're not supposed to do it, it's just very tempting to sort of try and over polish and over refine what you're doing. And sometimes first-time founders particularly get quite twitchy about maybe somebody might steal their idea. Actually getting out of the building, testing your hypothesis, and just ensuring that you've got you've got the right team around you. You know, everybody needs a co-founder. In fact, it's almost impossible to raise serious money now unless you've got a co-founder. There are very few successful businesses going on their own. So as long as you've got a clear proposition, there's some great templates out there of you can go back and look at the first sort of seed raised decks of some of the biggest companies now, because they've been published. So just making sure that you're very clear on your proposition, you're very clear what you're asking for and why, how you're differentiating, all the usual things, and don't be afraid to make sure that the people you're pitching to understand you and the team, because ultimately, you know, on both sides of the investment fence, it's ultimately all about the people. I mean, I've seen businesses, you know, go and try and raise money and then say that I'm going to invest in you, but what was your second best idea? Because actually I'm not sure you're chasing the right thing, but I like you, and I think so bringing your own attributes and why it is that you are the right person to be doing this. Ultimately, I think it's one of the most important things to get across when you're pitching, because it's you there investing in, not just the technology or the business idea.
Yeah, that's right. That's some really great tips there, and I think our angels would agree with that, and that it's definitely about the person as well. So that's really interesting to hear from your side.
I think it's actually maybe just to quickly just make a comment on why that is, and that is because there's no plan survives first contact with the enemy. No plan is going to survive reality once you start getting out there in the market. So really, investors are betting on your quality, the qualities that you have to be able to adapt and to change, and to be, to have that flexibility and that drive to see it all the way through. So yeah, that's the quality I've certainly always looked for when I'm investing in someone.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on then, you have given us some really great insight into where Rainbird started in your journey. So just spinning forwards then, perhaps you can give us an update on where Rainbird is today.
Yeah, so Rainbird is 8 years old now. We are around 45 people. I think to some extent, we were very early when we came to the market. Everybody, for years has gone, actually, what you're doing is amazing, and it absolutely has the potential to change the world. But maybe only 50% of people were understanding 50% of what we were saying. We have a very clear purpose. Our purpose is to make every expert in the world capable of being a superhero by leveraging their knowledge, and our moonshot's always been to deliver this by becoming the de facto decision automation technology in the world. So we have a very clear vision, and that really runs through everything that we do, internally and externally. We're growing quite quickly now. The world has sort of caught up, and we've developed a massive bank of intellectual property in our platforms, which puts us technically quite a long way ahead. But we have been sort of trying to it's quite hard having to try and educate the market, but there is this whole sort of unstoppable sort of train of automation now, and that means that and actually COVID's really added to the need to be able to automate human processes and to be able to find new levels of efficiency, of course, but also to improve the quality of services, and every business wants to find new revenues too, and it's rare a technology comes along that does all of those things. So we are now in a position where we are growing quite quickly. For us, that's a relentless investment in the platform, or multiple platforms we have now. It's the technology. It's an investment in sales, getting the lead generation engine, getting everything working. So yeah, Rainbird's definitely finding its traction now, and we're just really lucky to have such a great team, and a really purpose-driven lot of people that are driven by the mission that we've laid out.
Yeah, and Rainbird clearly has such a clear vision, and where you're going, and that's fantastic. But I wondered if you could share with us perhaps your toughest challenge, but also your proudest moment as well. Okay, so
Rainbird's a platform business, right? Not a point solution, and that is definitely its toughest challenge. It is, it's platforms assuming that they can scale survive long enough, will always win the day, right? If you can provide a technology that is horizontally applicable, that can transform multiple industries, that's hugely exciting. But everybody knows, that can feel a lot like you're trying to boil the ocean. So you have to find your focus. So that's been the biggest challenge, is I think juggling being this horizontal play where Rainbird can transform financial services and healthcare and tax and all these different areas where people rely on individuals with complex expertise that needs to be scaled through technology, and balancing that with actually helping people solve a specific problem. It's platform businesses are universal painkillers, and that's not always very helpful. You have to define the pain before you can solve it. So that's been the challenge. I think the proudest moment for me, I would say, Jamie, that the sort of a rolling moments of pride typically around the team. The next generation of our product that's been produced by the team, the emerging research and development work that's been done, the delivery ethic that the business has. Of course, it's always great when somebody sells something, but really for me, the proudest moments are all about the team. I think the other one would be, as a team, is the positive impact that we've had on the world around COVID. A lot of businesses, when COVID first struck, sort of were very focused on trying to furlough people and shut it down. And we recognized there was an opportunity there to have a significant social impact, but at the same time understand our relevance in what was a rapidly changing world. So, we built solutions around things like COVID risk assessments for multiple NHS trusts that's provided protection to tens of thousands of frontline workers. And still today is assessing risk, the risk to individuals that work in healthcare settings. So that's an example of actually possibly the smallest project we ever did in Rainbird. It went from an idea to being live in just 8 days, but almost certainly one that's contributed to saving lives. So I think that's, from a corporate point of view, that's probably the proudest moment. But for me personally, it's always the achievements of the team.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much to be proud of, and Rainbird is just going from strength to strength, which is fantastic to hear. So I'm going to let you get back to it, but thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, James.
Thanks, Laura. Take care.
Thank you.